Seagulls are here.
Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of our 2024 season. Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls, of course. My name is Clark. I'm joined by my pal, Evan. Spring has sprung, Evan. We're in spring training days. We've got some content coming out. How you doing?
I'm good. I think I might be able to get an NRI little invite to camp. Pablo Sandoval's back, so I might as well. I mean, if he can do it, anybody can.
I've heard all you have to do is text Farhan pictures of you working out, and he'll be convinced. So it's pretty simple.
I've had a toe injury the past couple weeks, so I may have to go on the IL to start the season, but I know that I will round into form. It's me and Aaron Judge. I don't know if you saw that he has that toe injury that's going to take, he's going to have maintenance throughout his whole career, so he says, and hopefully it's not the same for me.
I was just going to say, this is not Foggy with a Chance of Bronx Bombers, but that was one of my worst. But Aaron Judge's toe injury is one of the weirder things. Not that I want to spend too much time, but why is this still an issue for him? Because it felt like he was out most of last year with it.
Toes are tricky. That's what I've been learning these past few weeks. Somebody stepped on my foot in soccer, and it may be some type of little fracture or something like that. I don't know. But in any case, your big toe, you rely on it for a lot of stuff in life. I'm finding out, getting places, kind of exercising. So it's a tough one. But I have a question for you unrelated to Aaron Judge, which is, I actually, this is kind of inspired by, I was recently updating all my, top 6 or whatever in my text, all the profile pictures. And I replaced a wonderful picture of you with a picture of Tyler Chatwood in a Giants uniform. So with that, I wanted to ask you, I've always thought that they looked alike. I'll put it up on the screen. You can see the vision. But if you were in the majors right now, what position would you like to play? What type of player would you like to be?
Okay, so I love telling everyone about your Tyler Chatwood, Clark Weininger doppelganger nonsense, because it's given me a lot of joy, especially when he was briefly a Giant in 2021 for all of 4 innings, and it was a great running gag for us.
4 big innings, Clark. They were important.
Huge innings. But now on the team, we've got Brett Wisely, who I also feel like is kind of a Clark doppelganger, which goes into, realistically, based on my size and stature, I give off very big second baseman energy, but I always wanted to be a first baseman, a la Will Clark, JT Snow, Brandon Belt. Giants have low-key had some pretty awesome first basemen. So it would be first base, but more realistically, second. How about you, my friend?
Looking at the Giants organization, I feel like my best way in is as a backup bullpen catcher, because there's a path already established there. What got me thinking about this too is I was seeing some media day pictures of Yoshi Tsutsugo, and that guy is just a guy. Doesn't look like a baseball player at all. Just looks like a guy that somehow got in there, and I feel like I'd love to do what he does. I think that I would have a really high launch angle and very little success. I think that you would see me hitting batting practice homers, but in-game power, it all went out the window. Lots of strikeouts, lots of swing and miss. But I think I envision myself as being kind of like Pablo, a way better defender than anybody thinks that he should be or has the right to be.
Gives off bad defender vibes, but can field his position.
Exactly. I'm really going to work on my positioning, and I think that is going to put me in a position for success. But we just mentioned here, Pablo, Yoshi Tsutsugo. Between our last recording, right after we recorded it, We signed Pablo Sandoval. We have to talk about it. The Kung Fu Panda is
have
back.
to talk about it.
What are your thoughts?
Oh my God. Well, I thought it was a joke at first. I'll be quite honest. And not in like a, like kind of in a Sergio Romo from last year way. Not as like the whole thing is a joke, but more just like the idea of him trying out is like kind of just a vibe play. But then I saw Pablo, and we'll get to this a little bit later because there are some other candidates for best shape of their life, which we will continue to monitor throughout the spring. But he looks svelte, I would even say. I would throw out a svelte to describe not even a panda anymore. He's like what's a skinnier bear type animal? Moving on. Anyway.
Can I say about svelte really quickly? Just
Please.
a detour. The first time I heard that word was at your house when we were talking to our former choir teacher, Mr. Bohm. And I came in and he said, "You're looking very
Shout out.
svelte." And I went, "Did this man just insult me?" And I had to Google the definition later.
Oh
and
no,
found
he's
out what
coming
it
on to
was,
me.
so.
Oh no.
Maybe a red panda after
I
his
like
time abroad.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Also, shout out to Christian Bohm. Love a good shout out.
Always.
But yeah, Pablo is legitimately trying out for the team. He has already said he would be, I think, willing to go to Sacramento if things fell that way. There's not really a clear spot for him. Frankly, why would there be? But I think this is a tryout for all of baseball, more than just for the Giants. He wants to show to MLB that he can still play, and the Giants are the team that will most likely bring him in. I can't imagine the Red Sox are answering his calls. I'll just put it that way. Boch doesn't have enough sway on a World Series team. Like, there just aren't that many options for young Panda. So
It's true. It's true. I don't know if the Bostonians would welcome him back with open arms. Rafael Devers recently talking to the media said, "We need to do more." I think if they signed Pablo, the Fenway would be on fire by next week.
That wasn't what Rafi was talking about.
But, actually, interestingly, that's the exact thought that I had, is that I think he was looking for a path to get to spring training, and then he's not going to make the team. He's not going to go to Sacramento, is my feeling on it most likely. I think if there's no other options around the league, then he will go to Sacramento because that's his best option at getting back in the majors. But look, he looks good. He hit that 6-run home run in Dubai or whatever. And
no Giant has ever hit a 6-run home run before. So
hey, not even Barry Bonds,
Just
okay?
saying.
So, but I actually, people hate fun. I think that's what I'm learning this offseason. And Pablo is fun no matter how you slice it. And look, he actually did text Bochy. I saw a tweet that he had sent the videos to Bochy as well. And so that was kind of what confirmed the thought that you had, that he's just like trying to get a spot in the majors anywhere. And look, he was back with the organization for longer than we thought, that second stint, like he had that. I feel like I haven't seen this mentioned in a lot of articles about him, but, he had a kind of positive and negative exit from the team, hitting that home run to clinch us that win. I think during the shortened season that cost us, some draft picks or whatever.
Was it sooner? Because it was the Joey Bart pick, basically, because we were vying for the number one with the Tigers, and he hit a walk-off homer on the last day of the season, which would have been 2017, 2018. I was...
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But he hit the walk-off homer. We got the second pick. And honestly, between Casey Mize and Joey Bart, they're both kind of a wash in that sense.
Yeah,
it's good that it wasn't like Adley Rutschman and Joey Bart, and then we're like, Pablo! It doesn't make it as bad. But I'm pretty sure we might have to fact check that. I'm kind of going based off memory there. But I think it was the Joey Bart pick.
I won't fact check it because anything we say on this podcast is empirically true. And if you're listening, that's just, them's the rules.
Been
and
established.
I do want to come back to Bart in a second.
Yeah.
But I'll say about Pablo, like, I think it's actually there's way more positives than negatives to me when you look at it. It's like this is a season where we're really leaning on our youth to carry us. And so who do you need to factor into that equation? You need some veteran leadership in the clubhouse, which we don't have that much of. Austin Slater is our senior member right now. Yeah. And,
Webb.
It's kind of... Slater's 30-something, but Webb's still a young guy.
He is.
Lee's one of our marquee free agents, but he's new. And I think that the energy that Pablo brings to the clubhouse and just showing the young guys, I think having Soler, Sandoval in there, it's a different vibe. It's like, this whole reshaping of the organization from the coaching staff down. I think it kind of is to honor those 3 rings that we got and what got us there, which includes Pablo, which includes, just like
Buster,
and he's going to be there, and we're going to have Hunter come around. I've heard that Barry from Pavlovich might be coming around to camp, but these type of people and the gravitas of Melvin coming in there and
Matt
kind of
Williams.
Again, taking people, Matt Williams, taking everybody back to kindergarten in a way and growing up together. I think that there's something really to be said for that. And I'm excited to see this kind of culture shift that we've got. Pavlovich was talking on Giants Talk about how Melvin is on time to everything, if not early. And last year, you would wait however many minutes for Kapler to, come to the post-game conference. And honestly, I don't really care about that. Obviously, media members are going to care more than anybody else. But I kind of feel like that professionalism, I think that that's what we've been missing. And I think that our marquee guys for a decade, consummate professionals, just showing up to the yard, doing their best, doing the preparation, doing the work. And I think that if we're going to find success with these young guys, I think it has to be through that lens. So I guess I'd throw to you, who of the young guys right now in camp are you excited by?
Yeah. Before I answer your question, I loved what you were saying. And I think honoring the old Giants is the point of being a Giants fan. I mean, this is a franchise with so much history. And I think that was a low-key reason for our success in 2021. It was the Posey, Belt, Crawford led team. And it was their last hurrah, and we've been trying to get back to this. And I think that's a big part of the Melvin hiring and all of this. So I just wanted to echo the point that you were making there. Young guys I'm excited for. I love Luis Matos. I'm just planting my flag. Thick Luis Matos, that is. We might be able to pull it up, but there was a thing on Twitter I was seeing this week of a side-by-side of him from last year and him from this year. I was showing my girlfriend Amanda, and she goes, "Steroids?" And I was like, I got actually so offended. And she was like, "I don't mean that in a accusing him way, but he definitely took something to help him, whether it's legal or not or whatever it is." But she was saying, and I think accurately so, his body looks very different than it did last year. Yeah, so Matos and Patty Barrels, who is also a thick boy, both of them said that last year, and this is really interesting, I think, because they came in the middle of the season and in the summer, neither of them could keep the weight they put on before the year. Basically that Matos, for example, his debut happened in St. Louis, where it's 95 with 100% humidity. You sweat out your entire body weight standing in center field or left field or wherever. And so setting yourself up to start from a place that's higher and expect to lose a little weight throughout the season, but then be able to maintain it or know how to, keep that weight on, I think will help both of those guys, and maybe other guys on the team who we're not talking about, sustain better than they did last year, where we really fell off a cliff in the second half. So those two guys I'm very excited about. Anyone else that I didn't mention who you're thinking about?
Besides Yoshi Tsutsugo, I think, no, I mean, I love your picks. I think Matos looks good. I love the hair. The whole look, it's giving professional baseball player, and I really like see it.
It's giving Ronald Acuna vibes a little bit. I don't want to put him on that pedestal. But I saw him look a little thicker, and I was like, is he low-key going to be our first 30-30 which is false. I mean, Matos has hit like 4 home runs in his entire career, but maybe.
I think obviously the optimism goggles are on, but I feel like if the season ends with him as a regular left fielder, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Let's just say that much. With all love to Michael Conforto. But there's a picture of Matos with Lee, and just the idea of Matos and Lee in the outfield is really something that I look forward to. Ramos too. Like I feel like, and it's interesting, to what you're saying about putting on weight because you're going to lose it during the season. It's like, it's almost, what they're saying too is like, it's almost impossible to be putting it on as the season progresses because you're out there in the sun during the summer, just standing there, just losing weight constantly. So coming in really jacked, honestly, Gabe Kapler style is important for ball players because you're going to lose that muscle and that fat at the same time. So I love seeing Patty. I saw you had in our notes Patty wine barrels. I love seeing that. He looks a little stocky, which is good. That's what you want a catcher to look like. And what's interesting about him is that we know how good he can be, but he hasn't like fully shown it yet over a full season. And so I think that this is a real, like, we kind of take him like he's just going to be great coming in. But I think that there's a wide variance of what his year looks like this year. And I think if there's we talked about it last week, but if there's offense from his spot, that really changes the look of the lineup to me in a big way.
And he was such a clutch hitter last year too. I really think there was so much to love about his season, even though you can kind of look at it and be like, there's a lot of room for improvement. But I think he's a stud. And I don't know if you wanted to transition to this, but we referenced it just a second ago. But I mean, his emergence means something for Joey Bart. You want to go into that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, best shape of his life. I think Joey looks great. He looks like a ball player too. And I think that, as has been, the tea leaves have been cast many months, years ago with him and in this organization. And I think, with signing Tom Murphy, it's just they've, kind of very implicitly, explicitly said that that he doesn't really have a place. I mean, you can carry 3 catchers. I mean, you never know. He's still on the team as of now. I didn't think he'd be on the team as of now. I didn't necessarily think Davis would be the starting third baseman. I didn't think there wouldn't be anybody that we don't bring in for shortstop. The team looks different now than I thought it would. And so, who knows? But I think that he's destined for greener pastures, and he just feels like a change of scenery candidate. I think it's felt that way for a while. But if we can get anything for him, that would be great. I think he's a great example of what reality versus expectations with baseball players. And look, like you and I were all aboard the Keaton Winn train, and it was recently his birthday, and an unfortunate gift is that he has some elbow soreness that he's dealing with. It doesn't seem like there has to be a major surgery as of now, but you never want to hear that. I think he was dealing with that last year too. And so going into the season with Winn and Beck 4-5, you feel good about it, but then you take Winn away, baseball starts doing baseball things, and then you kind of start thinking about the depth in a different way, and it's like there's options that we have, and we can maybe go through some of those guys, but I think it already throws a little bit of water on the optimism with the rotation for me, just a bit. What are your feelings on it? You're
totally right. I mean, baseball is always about recovering from injuries and making up for injuries. And I think with our pitching staff, the knock on it is that, like, with Cobb and Ray already shelved, you're relying on Winn and Beck and Harrison and Hicks, all these unproven guys, to just be healthy, let alone effective. And so you're making 2 gambles. And I think where the Giants feel a lot more safe is that they feel very confident, is my assumption here, in Mason Black, in Carson Wisenhunt, in Hayden Birdsong, and some of these guys coming up from the minors. I think even Reggie Crawford, and we'll get into a little bit more. We talked last time about his shift, now exclusively a pitcher, but like he's got some unreal talent. And I think they're excited to just see that talent play. And I think we're past, I can't remember what this was from, but I was listening to some either podcast or show, something baseball-y, and they were talking about how gone are the days where pitchers have to kind of pitch a certain number of minor league innings. That we have gotten so advanced with pitch recognition, pitch shape recognition, and understanding kind of like the quality of shape, movement, all this stuff, that if you see this in a pitcher in the minors, that there are certain signs, and teams have such advanced analytics at this point that they can project what a guy might look like in the big leagues. And so instead of kind of using up all of their bullets, so to speak, in the minors, I think this is why the Giants are moving forward with this strategy, is internally they are so high on all of these young pitchers that they have. So even like, I don't know, I mean, we saw it in the offseason, like a Stripling, a DeSclafani aren't better than our internal options, and I think probably aren't better than Mason Black, Carson Wisenhunt, Birdsong, and these guys, who probably won't start the year in the big leagues. But if Keaton Winn continues to be hurt and he has to be on the IL, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mason Black start the year. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I think even though these aren't like household names yet, I think the Giants feel very comfortable with their young guys. And we were talking about leadership before, but all of these young guys have been in Arizona for months now, working out with Logan Webb. And all of them are attributing Logan Webb's leadership, and Logan talked about it. We mentioned it on our last pod, but on the Rose rotation, which he was on about 10 days ago, Logan was talking about like, these guys are all just super excited, committed, like it feels like this kind of cohort that's coming up together. And so I think the Giants are comfortable replacing Wynn with any of their other young guys for the time being, and honestly just seeing who can show it at the big league level.
I love all of that. I think this organization has really shifted their philosophy on promoting, prospects to the majors. Like, it's really about quality over quantity at this point. And I think, with pitchers, it's like, why put years and years of minors mileage on their arms? Like, they're, once you reach a certain development threshold, I think that's why you see, Crawford potentially making the leap at some point this year, is because the quality is high enough. So just stick him in where you can find a spot for him. And it feels like there feels like more of a unified vision going into this year. I think we talked about it with like the NRI list. It's just like, it's focused on young guys plus Pablo plus Yoshi Tsutsugo. And for the most part, we're really just like giving them the platform to do what they need to do. And I think that that's exciting. And I think that we've lacked kind of that unified vision the past few years. It's really been kind of just like, let's see what sticks. And then we kind of, fell ass backwards into 2021, which was awesome. But
one part to that too is I think in the last few years, we've thought of the development as more of like, how do we take a Kevin Gossman who has talent but hasn't quite put it together, and how do we turn that into a big league starter? Alex Cobb, I think, is a similar case in that sense too. And the Giants were kind of the splitter factory under Brian Bannister when he was our director of pitching. He's moved on. He's gone to the White Sox, I think. But we were kind of the splitter factory. So like Gossman had his best success with us and has continued that on. Cobb throws his splitter more than anyone. Keaton Winn threw his splitter more than any other pitcher in the big leagues last year in his limited time. And so I think there are these like general philosophies that we've been putting onto already major league pitchers who we think we can improve. I think Jordan Hicks falls into this category. But then I think the exciting thing about this season is now this is the realization of the farm development that Farhan's been doing. And I think it's important to note that this stuff takes a long time. These are guys drafted in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. Wisenhunt was 2022, I think. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got these draft picks over the last 4 years that we're finally getting up to the big leagues to even just come to spring training, let alone contribute to the major league roster. And I think this transitions to something we were talking about off air this morning, something Tim Kawakami wrote this morning. I don't know if you want to take this on.
I was about to talk shit about Tim Kawakami, but I'm not going to because I love everybody. But he, in a mailbag article that he wrote, he said, the fundamental problem in the Zaidi era is that he's built an organization set up to capitalize on a farm system that has yet to actually produce any stars, which has put extra pressure on the free agent chases. I think we can concede that Zaidi isn't very good at big free agent chases, or just good enough to continue to finish second or third. And I think that that's a pretty big claim. And I think that it's a central, factor that is part of all Giants fan conversations at the moment, is what they think about that. And it's interesting. I wanted to push back against this just a little bit because I feel like I'd seen something about the Yankees maybe on Ohtani that like weren't given the chance to match that final offer that the Dodgers did, or the deferral thing. Like, I think they weren't offered it. And so I don't know if this is just a ploy again to like use the Giants against the Dodgers, but what that says to me is like, it reminds me of what Giannis said last year about, like what the point of sports is. And I don't think that the only point of sports is to finish first. It's for your process to be sound and to like be doing what you need to do. Yeah, I think that there's maybe some lessons to be learned from this offseason in regards to the free agents that we're able to bring in, like Hicks and Soler and Lee. I think they all, maybe minus Hicks, like all came over for a year or a couple years longer, a couple $1 million like more, that sometimes you just have to eat and know that that's part of it. But I think that it's been a lesson learned over the last few years with free agents. He's definitely right that this organization relies on the farm system producing stars.
Any organization.
I saw a graphic. Yeah. And I saw this graphic of like value extracted from first round picks in the last 10 years or something. And the Giants are dead last at like minus 0.1 WAR. And it's like, that is why we're in this position.
Yeah. It's minus 0.1 WAR. And then our most valuable player out of our last 10 years of draft picks is Patrick Bailey from last year, who amounted 0.8 WAR. I mean, it's just been horrendous. And I think we also have to appreciate that the previous 10 years, we had a string of good luck that is also hard to replicate. So it's been, the Posey, Bumgarner, Kane, Lincecum run. And then the Joey Bart, Hunter Bishop, Will Bednar run. It's a gamble. But that's where success comes from. And we've talked about this with the Dodgers previously, is, they had to build up the farm first before they got to this point. But I love what you're saying too, because it was Cashman on Talkin' Yanks with John Boy and Jake, where he said he didn't even know of that deferral. They didn't get to that point with Ohtani. And so you can take that as like hey, Giants were in on Ohtani, like to a pretty intense degree. And then you can also kind of agree with Kawakami of being like, maybe Farhan is just good enough in free agency to be second or third. And that isn't a bad thing, because I think being second or third for the Ohtanis and Yamamotos means that we're first for Jung-Hoo Lee and Jorge Soler. And I think those signings fit super well with what we're trying to do. So I think there's a level of reach for the stars, if you fall, you land on the cloud kind of thing. But you're still in a better position than the Marlins this year, who haven't signed anyone. And except for today, they signed Tim Anderson to a 1-year deal. And it's like, we could have sat out the entire offseason, but we didn't. And we spent a good amount of money.
I think it's a good time for us to practice some gratitude, not to get all new agey on your ass, but I feel like low key, it's like we have spent the second most in all of baseball minus the Dodgers this year. Like, think about that. Like, there, like you said, it's a sad time to be a Marlins fan. It's a sad time to be a Red Sox fan right now. Do you know what I mean? It's like we are doing something, and I actually, this is super homery of me, of course, but I feel like our offseason has been massively underrated to this point. I think that I think you read the names on paper and it feels like not much happened or whatever. But I think that they've really like restructured this team. They've given more flexibility in this team. Optionality is there. Youth is there. We're finally, I think, prioritizing defense in a way that is meaningful.
Big time.
I just feel like, I don't know. I think this would be a good time to talk about the Boris 4. You know, it's a constant discussion every week, but, you know, we're about to start playing spring training games
today. So the first spring training game is today between the Dodgers and Padres. It's starting in like 3 hours. Yeah, and Farhan talked about this earlier this week, and I think Pavlovich posted an article about it. But basically, he was like, yeah, at this point, he made two really good points. The first one was the optionality that you talked about. It's like you've got guys reporting to spring training who now are looking at a certain job that they're going out for. And so if we bring in a guy halfway through spring training, that changes the entire landscape of the roster. And then it also isn't fair to guys who are grinding, who are working hard for a certain job, who are deserved major leaguers. I think there's a difference. If there was like, trying to think of a good shortstop example, but like if Matt Chapman were a shortstop, I think it would be a lot easier to bring him in and say, you know what, Marco, you've had 11 games in the big leagues. We're going to give you one more development year and sign this guy to a 1-year deal or whatever it is. But because it's JD Davis, he's on his last year of his contract. He's going into free agency next year. You're not only hurting his chances at playing this year, but you're actually hurting his chances at earning money when he goes into free agency. So if you sign a guy at this point, there aren't teams willing to trade for him like there may have been in the offseason. There aren't teams willing to, you know, help the Giants make this roster fit as easily as it would have been earlier in the year. So I think it's not fair to the players. You also kind of lose the like vibe that we're talking about, which is kind of a funny thing to talk about, I guess, because you can't really quantify it. But like you've got, I think, really good energy from the little bit that we're seeing coming out of spring training, and signing a guy, even though Matt Chapman would get along really well with the organization, I think he'd fit in really well. It's almost like, you know, like, is that, what's the trade-off there, I guess? So those are my initial thoughts.
I definitely agree. I would love to, if maybe baseball could work with some psychotherapists or sociologists and perhaps determine like a vibe statistic, because, you know, on the one end you have Pablo, on the other hand maybe it's like Rougned Odor or something like that. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, again, just to defend the Giants and, you know, our franchises, like there's people that want to come here. We've been making signings this offseason. I think from everything that I've read, it seems like Chapman wants to be here. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but it kind of feels like he does, but is just asking for too much. But, you know, you look at Soler, and Wilmer and Tyro helped recruit him into the organization when maybe he wanted to stay on the East Coast. Yeah. Like there's something like happening with the Giants that I feel like is interesting. And I actually want to bring it back to something that you'd referenced. I think that the Marco Luciano experiment is tantamount to our success this year. And I think we both read this, but Keith Law, who's like a big prospect guy for The Athletic, put out his individual team rankings of their prospects. And in his article, he basically flat out says that he is not a shortstop. I never bought him as a shortstop or really even a second baseman.
Go ahead.
And I just want to like explore what you think is like the most likely path forward for Luciano, because there's lots of data to look at, there's lots of raw tools to look at, and it's kind of hard to like know how that's all going to coalesce together, especially without right now a bona fide backup minus Tyler Fitzgerald, who I think we're both rooting for that spot.
And my guy Otto von Lopez, don't forget.
Sorry.
But no, I think it's interesting. I saw this guy online basically be like, Giants are putting a lot of stock into a guy who hasn't really shown he can hit above A ball. And I immediately was like, that can't be true. And then I looked at his stats, which I am going to read out to you very quickly. But he was signed in 2019 or 2018. I can't remember. I think 2018 was his class. So he started in low A in 2019 as a 17-year-old. And he batted .212 with a .316 on base percentage and a .333 slugging. And like, not a great OPS, but he's also 17 in a league where most people are like, I don't know, 20, 21 years old. So he's like 4 years behind where people are at. Then the pandemic happens, wipes out, but he was at the alternate site, but it wipes out a whole year of playing basically. So then he goes back to low A, which at that point was a different location. But he goes to San Jose, where you and I happened to see that squad. We didn't see him because he was at the Futures game. But one of my favorite little things to mention is we saw Kyle Harrison on the bump, Patrick Bailey behind the plate, Luis Matos in center field, and Casey Schmidt at third base. And like 2021 San Jose Giants, 3 years later, they're all potentially going to be on the big league squad, except for maybe Casey. We'll get into that another time. So Marco kills it in San Jose that year, gets brought up mid-season or like end of the season to high A and struggles. And just his low A slash line was 278 batting average, 373 on base, and 556 slugging. He was pulverizing the ball. So then in 2022, he does high A, performs very well, 263, 339, and a 459 slugging. So like an 800 OPS, doing well. Goes up to double A last year, had some injury issues in high A in 2022 that kind of came over last year as well. And last year was kind of a struggle in terms of contact, but his on-base percentage, which is what I kind of want to focus on now, really took off. So he batted .228 in Richmond, he batted .208 in Sacramento. Not great, but in both he had a .330 on-base percentage, basically. And so he really exudes the like three true outcomes of baseball: the walk, homer, strikeout, which has been a thing that I think a lot of Giants fans have gotten frustrated with our teams over the last couple of years, is we've had too many three true outcome guys, which is why I think a Jung-Hoo Lee is such an important addition to our team. Tyro doesn't fit that mold either. These are guys that really help. But Marco, I don't think we should expect him to have a very high batting average this year. As a big leaguer, he's still going to struggle. Keith Law mentions it in the article that you were referencing. He's still struggling with breaking ball recognition and strikes out a lot. But when he makes contact, he has some elite exit velocities and power. And I think we're going to see it this year. Sink or swim year for him in many ways. But I think what we should be expecting is a guy who can hit the crap out of the ball, who will not be batting high in the order, and, will be focusing on some simple things like improving his defense, which I think Keith Law is wrong about personally. I have not seen Marco play enough to be like super sure, but the Giants seem very sure that he is a shortstop. And I trust the Giants. So anyway, I will finish my monologuing here and pass it back to you.
Yeah, that makes me think of middle infielder who couldn't field, who eventually learned to field. And I wonder if you know who I'm thinking about.
I do. Does he happen to lead the franchise in games played at shortstop?
No, actually.
Oh.
He played for another team in the Bay Area.
Oh.
Do you see where I'm getting at here? Who I'm talking about, of course, is Marcus Semien, World Series champion with the Texas Rangers. And the book on Semien, obviously he wasn't a prospect with the A's coming up. He came from the White Sox, I believe. But he went from a below average guy in the field to an above average plus guy that you want at second. Second, obviously more demanding than shortstop, but who was the manager of the Oakland Athletics at that time?
I'll get this one right.
Bob. You've got it. Please say it with me. Bob Melvin with the latency.
Bob Belvin.
Damn. But, I think because honestly, while you were reading through those stats, I was like, this sounds like a guy who could have a one-way ticket to Sacramento for the whole year. And then I thought about it, and it's like, what do we have to lose? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are the alternatives at this point? A trade for Tommy Edman. I don't think Adames gets done. I know a lot of people want that, but unless we find a regular, then it's like, might as well just try, see what happens. And look, I think a lot of people, we mentioned him earlier, are counting Tyler Fitzgerald out. I think that guy is way more capable than we think. He's got some strikeout problems, as we have, proliferated in a lot of our hitters now. But that's kind of just how the game moves. And I think that I feel somewhat optimistic that we're going to see guys make a leap this year that you wouldn't have put on the map otherwise. Melvin in his A's days talked about how he rode 5 rookie pitchers to the playoffs.
Division
I
title.
what year that was.
Yeah,
Division
2012.
Title, yeah. 2012. Great time for A's baseball, by the way. But he's been here before, and he knows how to handle this type of situation. And, I think Gabe Kapler, that was his idea, but I think he's ultimately best suited to walk around filming on TikTok and work in a front office.
Yeah.
But I guess I have a question as far as our roster construction, just to kind of tie a couple of things together. Where do you think that the roster changes greatly from now until, let's say, the All-Star break? Or opening day?
Yeah. I have two thoughts. So the first one is the rotation. I think that's the easy one. We've got Cobb and Ray. And I've been harping on this a ton. I'm not going to spend too much time, but the idea of an opening day roster that has a bunch of young pitchers and then a stretch run for the playoffs that has Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb, who are a little bit fresher. It just excites me. And then maybe we pick up one more arm at the deadline, or, we figure something out. But the other thing, and we talked about this last week too, with Soler being signed, Jung-Hoo Lee and Jorge Soler make the lineup make sense. Just, you plug those two guys in every day, they're playing, and they have their spot. And now there isn't pressure on, all of a sudden Wilmer is our cleanup guy for the whole year. Or, weird, why is Bailey in the 5-hole every night? Kind of thing. And we were seeing that a lot last year.
Yeah.
And you're just not setting your guys up for success. But I think Bailey and Luciano are projected to be our 8 and 9 hitters. And at that point in the lineup, these guys aren't I have to produce or else we're not going to score a run today. I mean, that still might happen because Logan Webb is still starting, and, he's the modern day Matt Cain who gets 0 run support. So we'll probably still keep giving him no run support, but that's what I'm looking out for. Is there anything that I missed or that you're focusing on that I didn't say?
No, I mean, honestly, I know we've talked about it before, but I feel like just thinking about entering a potential playoff scenario with Webb, Harrison, Cobb, Ray, and then, Hicks / Beck / Black / something like that. That's pretty exciting and honestly gave me chills. But I understand that that's a long way from now. I think I think, you know, I think that we're at a point where, for me, somebody like Jordan Montgomery really makes sense to like stabilize this rotation because, you know, Ray's going to take a little bit to ramp back up. Cobb, I think, is actually ahead of schedule as far as what it looks to me. So that's good news. But, you know, who knows what happens to Hicks? Who knows what happens to Harrison? You know, there's no givens. And I think it fits the vision of what I feel like they're trying to do this year, which is to have contingency plans upon contingency plans for just things to go wrong. And I think right now it's like we're kind of like sink or swim vibes. And so I think that there could be some stability brought. I've read from such unnameable sources as Ghost of Bay Area Bob on Twitter. Do not go to his account. But I've read that he is that the Giants are only really engaged on Chapman and not so much so Snell and Montgomery. Don't know if that's true or not, but I think that one of those for, you know, a shorter deal. I maintain that I think it's, if you're going to do it now. Find a way to make it happen. Something I did want to talk about is that I saw Ben Kaspic posted. He kind of like took 2020 and did it out for the whole year, and then I think last year there's $30 million of MLB money that went to this, but essentially like in the last however many years, our payroll has been almost exactly like 162, 160, 164, and you know, when Mr. Johnson earlier this offseason was talking about breaking even, I think that sat poorly with a lot of Giants fans, and I saw those numbers and I kind of saw why, because like depending on who you trust, we're like about 39 to 41 million under the luxury tax, which is plenty room to take on one more of these guys. I wonder if that break even point is around, you know, that 160, 164 measure, which I just feel like dude, come on. Like look at Joe Lacob over at Chase Center. Like that guy wants to win and that guy's willing to spend to win. And what's the difference? I don't think that there's any difference. So I feel like I think that we've, to this point, there's so much to be excited by in this offseason. And I think, you know, Grant's made this point a couple of times in his articles, but you look at what the Padres did. They did it multiple times under Preller's rule, but a couple of times they just went on the free agent market and just got a handful of guys. And look, that galvanizes the franchise. Now you see the Padres kind of dealing with the fallout of trying to collect all these guys and not working. But I don't think that's the position that the Giants are in. Like we have payroll flexibility for many years to come, deferral or no deferral. We've got, you know, Webb locked up. We've got Soler for a few years. You know, there's not a lot of guys that we have to spend a lot of money on. So I would love to see. I think now at this point, it's honestly more symbolic than it is in terms of on-field value. Like, I don't know if the war is worth it to, like, you know, go for Snell or Montgomery or Chapman. We're talking a couple wins either way. But I think that what it means to fans, I think is worth it. And I think that what, you know, the Boras 4, you know, represent now is commitment from ownership, because we see the commitment for Lee and Soler and Hicks, and, you know, we see that vision, but I think to like the average fan, it would mean a lot. And so to me, then it also means a lot, I think, to bring in like one more piece and do it now. Like, don't have those ramifications of, you know, putting guys out late in spring training. Like, just get it started, because like there's already a good thing going. Like, why not like make it as bulletproof as possible? It's kind of my feeling.
Yeah, I love that take. I don't ultimately agree with the take, but I love it, and I also don't pretend to be right with it. But my thing with the Padres example is like they are in hell right now in terms of like flexibility and stuff. They signed in 2018. They signed Hosmer to an 8-year deal. He just retired. They're still going to
congratulations on his retirement. Yes.
But some guy, I can't remember who, but someone who posts on Twitter a lot of analytics regarding baseball said that Hosmer is going to be more valuable this year than the last 2 years because he was a negative WAR the last 2 years. his defense has always been bad at first base, which is funny because I think he's a multiple-time Gold Glove Award winner. But his defense has always been bad at first base. And then he just completely lost the ability to hit the ball in the air his last few years in baseball. And so him and Bogarts, who they signed as a shortstop. Well, the last two off seasons before this one, the Padres signed Bogarts to a 10-year deal, and then the year before Tatis. And so they signed two different people at shortstop, who then the next year were moved off shortstop. And it'll mean that next year they will not be able to afford Ha-Sung Kim, who is the best shortstop on their team. They have been putting Jake Cronenworth at first base that has just completely killed his value. And all of these moves were made because they, like you said, were trying to galvanize fan attention. And I think the thing about the Padres that's different from the Giants is that they don't have an established history of winning. And so you needed to make these signings to bring people to the ballpark. Padre fans are going to be locked into the season because of the off seasons that they've had for years. Even if these moves, I don't think, really worked ultimately for winning. And we'll see. I mean, nothing's set in stone. But I think the Giants aren't in a position to hamstring themselves. Now, they also, like you said, and I completely agree, have so much flexibility that one guy of the Boris Four is not going to hamstring them forever, or even really at all. We saw it as Giants fans with Rowand and Zito. We still won a World Series with both of them under contract and not playing in the playoffs. That doesn't mean if you have this development coming through that you're going to all of a sudden not be able to compete. But I believe in the try to develop this year and compete next year. And I feel like a Snell or a Montgomery just keeps us from completely knowing what we have from the farm. But I will say, if we want to win as many games as possible this year, what you're saying is correct. So I think I think this is the argument, though, of this season. And I like that we're kind of on different sides of it, because I think if you're a Giants fan, it's appropriate to be on either side of this coin, I think. I think there are people who are so far in the other direction that are like, Farhan hasn't done anything. He needs to go. I'm never going to be a fan until he's out. And that's just wrong. I mean, you're just either not paying attention or you're just a sad person. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great time to mention that we have a voicemail. I will be plugging this for the rest of the season, even if nobody calls. I'm checking it right now, but I'm pretty sure we still have no voicemails left. There's been a few people who have just texted hello. That doesn't help me. I need a call. I need some feedback, a comment. Where do you stand on this issue? It's really something that we're trying to get going this week. So it would mean a lot to us if you called in. But I feel like that's a great point for us to start wrapping things up. I think this has been another beautifully wonderful episode of Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls, and we will see you next week when spring training has begun. Goodbye.